All right, y'all, welcome to the show. I have way too much news for you today. So I'm going to start with what's basically breaking news now, which is the landfall of Hurricane Idalia. We'll talk about that. I also have a whole bunch of Trump updates. We have his chief of staff potentially flipped on him. That would be devastating, and now we're adding to a list of like 4 other people who flipped on him and are telling all. We also have Republicans desperately trying to save Trump's ass by attempting to defund all of the prosecutors who are going after him. I have an amazing video that Vivek Ramaswamy definitely doesn't want you to see. It's young Vivek Ramaswamy when he was like a Harvard goofball and dork. And apparently he was a Democrat at the time, and he was asking Al Sharpton, who at the time was running for president, a question. It's an amazing video. Stay tuned for that. We have some devastating numbers now for Biden coming in, which don't bode well for his 2024 chances, if I'm being honest with you. I mean, the biggest gift in the world would be to run against a guy who has 91 criminal charges against him, but at the same time, he's got problems of his own that we're going to talk about. And then later on in the show, we also have one Bernard Sanders asked a question about Cornel West's political campaign, his third-party campaign for president. And he's got some, I would say, some spicy thoughts for us. So we'll talk about all that and much more. Let's go ahead and dive into it here without any further ado. So Hurricane Idalia, apparently that's how you pronounce it. It's a Spanish name, Idalia. It has now made landfall in Florida. And there was a brief moment where it was a Category 4 hurricane. Now, at the time, since it's made landfall, it's, lost some power and some strength. Usually that's what happens when hurricanes are over water. Warm water sort of fuels them and makes them stronger. And what we saw with Idalia was what's called rapid intensification. In other words, the water in the Gulf of Mexico is so extremely hot that it really took it from like a Category 1 hurricane all the way up to a 4 in like a 24-hour time frame, which, this is something that used to be rare. But at the same time, with climate change, we see things like this happening time and time again. I mean, how many times have you read an article that says this is a once-in-a-thousand-year kind of storm or weather event? And now the one-in-a-thousand-year storms are happening like every 3 years or thereabouts. So, really devastating situation. Now, just to put into perspective for you, I'm going to show you some video of what's going on the ground. My heart goes out to all these people. Guys, there's going to be a lot of people's homes are totally destroyed. I'm sure there's going to be a death count that's really high. You have a lot of people who moved to Florida recently, and perhaps they don't know about, the danger that a hurricane can present or a storm surge, which honestly is the most deadly part of the hurricane, which is when, there's flooding and there's certain areas that are mandatory evacuation zones. I hope everybody really did get out of those zones. So anyway, here's the difference between hurricanes, just to give you an idea of what we're dealing with here. Then I'll give you some video from today.
The Category 1 storm. And the damage is not too bad. A couple of shingles fall off, you can have some palm fronds bending in the wind, but everything basically remains intact. Category 2, that's where you really start to feel it. Look at the windows of the house. They can be hit from debris from the outside and already start breaking in a Category 2. Your trees are significantly bent over in the wind, and the siding of the house itself can break, flapping there in the wind, adding to those eerie noises inside. Category 3. I've heard only a Category 3, but it's not only anything except really bad news. In a Category 3, you can have the door of the house blown in because the winds get so strong. You can have the roof of the house start to flap up and down in the wind because it can lift off those weak points, and a lot of those trees start to fall. Category 4, the damage is even worse. You get most trees falling, most of your windows breaking, most of your shingles fly away, and then Cat 5 is as high as the category scale goes. By Cat 5...
So we're Category 4 with Idalia, but obviously Category 5, you guys know what that's like. Absolutely devastating. I mean, 4 is devastating, but 5 is next level because you just level everything in sight.
No shingles remain anywhere nearby. The holes in the roof get so big that the walls of the house start to fall because they're not attached to anything anymore. There won't be any trees up in the neighborhood. That's just catastrophic damage. But again, that's just from the wind. And there are other impacts from hurricanes, and they all vary through the season.
Now, again, I want to stress, the wind is one thing, and it's terrible, and it's devastating. But at the same time, the deadliest part of a hurricane is the storm surge. It's the flooding of basically the winds and the storm pushing the water inland and basically it flooding for, giant swaths of land. This is footage from one of the beaches as this hurricane was hitting. Look at this, guys. This is crazy. Look how powerful this is. Look at this. That's nothing to mess with right there. That's nothing to mess with. And then the camera's going to go out. So there's some areas already that we know in Florida have broken their record for storm surge. So here we have Jim Cantori, who's like the head guy on the Weather Channel, who always has to go right into these, these weather disasters. He is in Cedar Key, Florida, and the old storm surge record was about 6 feet, and they eclipsed that. As of me recording this right now, it's like 6 feet 9 inches. So think of like an average size NBA player, like slightly taller than average size NBA player. That's how much flooding there is. 6'9". Okay, so let me show you what that looks like. It ain't pretty. You can't really hear what he's saying, so I'll just mute the video. But you could see, so all of the older build houses that are not, basically on stilts, that aren't up to modern day code, all of those houses are screwed. So you see the ones over here that are on stilts. Those could be okay. Those could be okay in this particular area. Now, this place did not get hit with the eye of the storm. This wasn't like the epicenter of the storm. So wind is not as big of a concern in this particular area, but you can see this area, which isn't even that close to where the eye of the storm is, it's devastating and record storm surge. So all of these houses that are lower to the ground, many of them are going to be absolutely destroyed. Now, the ones that are built more recently and up to code and are up there on stilts, they could end up being okay. So this is, again, Cedar Key. Now, we also have, I got to show you this one too, man. This one is wild. So this is Perry, Florida, where I think it's either where it's making landfall or very close to where Idalia made landfall. And this is what the eye of the hurricane looks like. Or I should say, not the eye itself, if it's what's called a clean eye, it's actually kind of peaceful in it before it gets hectic again as soon as you get right past the eye. But this is like the strongest part of the storm making landfall. Watch this. Yeah, so this place in particular is probably going to be leveled. It looks like all up and down the northwestern part of Florida, in the Big Bend area, there's going to be catastrophic flooding all the way down from like Tampa and then all the way up to like the Bend area. There's going to be catastrophic flooding. We're already seeing catastrophic flooding. And look, I just hope that everybody got out in time. I hope everybody's safe. I hope people listened to the authorities when they said, hey, this is a mandatory evacuation. You got to get your ass out of here. Particularly those little islands that are off the coast that like you have to take a bridge to get to them. Like those things are going to be just leveled. This is going to do billions and billions of dollars worth of damage. And yet again, man, I mean, you can't get through the segment without repeating it. We're seeing more and more of these. Now, by the way, as a direct result of climate change and as a direct result, we were dealing with El Nino as well. There's a prediction that this is going to be a particularly devastating hurricane season where I think the number is there's a prediction of 4 or 5 major hurricanes that could make landfall. And then there's a whole bunch of other tropical storms as well. So we're seeing this more and more, and I hope it makes people wake up. I hope it makes our politicians wake up and do something about climate change. I mean, look, we had the Inflation Reduction Act, which did a lot of investment in green and renewable technology, but at the same time, now Biden is breaking all oil drilling records. So he's offsetting all the positive green and renewable technology stuff with continuing down the fossil fuel path. And there are consequences to that, man. And we're living through those consequences now. So I hope they get their act together, but, you know, I'm not going to hold my breath for that. But my heart goes out to everybody impacted by this in the region. I hope everybody's homes are okay. I hope everybody is safe personally and nobody dies or gets injured as a result of this, but it's probably going to be a bad one. This is a very, very strong hurricane. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.